Everton right half. His wonderful kick presents Dixie Dean with a chance in the goal mouth, which he doesn't miss this time.
This energetic young fellow, hanging around the goal, is one of Britain's greatest footballers.
Here's to Lancashire. And may that cup stay in Lancashire. If Everton don't win it, may another Lancashire club win it. Here, here.
He scored 60 goals in one league season. Nobody else ever managed it. Nobody else ever will. That should have made him untouchable. But football doesn't reward dominance. It punishes it. Dixie Dean gave Everton everything. Loyalty, numbers, glory. And when they were done with him, they didn't celebrate. They cut him loose. Quietly. Without a word. He wasn't dropped for form. He was removed for being too big to control. Behind the records were problems. Rivalries, envy, politics. 5 names tried to bring him down in different ways. Some on the pitch, some off it. They didn't beat him with tackles. They beat him with decisions, with silence, with power. Some replaced him. Some lied about him. Some watched him fade. One crossed a line and got reminded why he shouldn't have. Subscribe for the men who were unmatched and the names that couldn't stand watching it. He scored 60 goals in one league season. The last one came against Arsenal, May 5th, 1928. Goodison shook. After full time, the Arsenal players lined up. One by one, they shook Dean's hand. Even the ones who'd spent the match chasing shadows. But Charlie Buchan didn't move. Captain, England's frontman, voice of the establishment, the man who could shape how a player was remembered, and who was left behind. He stayed still, didn't speak, didn't nod, didn't even pretend. Everyone saw it. Dean had just broken the biggest number English football had ever seen, and Buchan responded with nothing. Not because he didn't notice, because he did. Buchan had played for England, scored goals, written headlines, built reputation through reputation. Dean didn't come from that world, and Buchan made it clear he wasn't letting him in. That snub wasn't awkward. It was deliberate, and Dean never forgot it. He didn't complain. He didn't need to. If he had, he shook hands with defenders who hacked me down, but couldn't do it for the man who made the net move. That silence wasn't pride, it was exclusion. Dean didn't play football. He tore it apart, and some players never forgave him for it. Elisha Scott was Liverpool's goalkeeper, local icon, fan favourite. But every time he faced Dean, something changed in his face. The crowd saw it as rivalry. They laughed when Dean brought aspirin tablets onto the pitch, pretending Scott gave him headaches. But Scott wasn't laughing. Not really. He was one of the few keepers who could stop Dean, until he couldn't. And when Dean started scoring in derbies, Scott took it personal. Behind the handshake photos were matches full of cheap shots, hard landings, muttered threats. Scott kicked back. So did the defenders. But Dean just kept scoring. Liverpool fans idolised Scott, but deep down, they knew. This wasn't banter. This was rage built match after match. Dean didn't hate him. He didn't need to. He humiliated him. In front of packed stadiums. On his own turf. And keepers like Scott don't forget that. I didn't mind when defenders kicked me, Dean once said. But when a keeper starts swinging, you know it's not about football anymore. This wasn't a friendly rivalry. It was damage that kept replaying. Even if they were good friends off the pitch. He gave Everton more than numbers. He gave them identity. Pride, trophies. A record that still hasn't moved. But in the boardroom, loyalty doesn't count. Theo Kelly wasn't a player. He was Everton's secretary. Later became the club's first manager. And the moment he had power, he used it to push Dean out. He didn't bench him overnight. He tightened the screws slowly, reduced his minutes, moved him to the reserves, stopped the press from asking questions, then sold him to Notts County for $3,000. No statement, no goodbye. Dean didn't walk away. He was erased. He started telling lies about me, Dean said years later. I could see it was over. Kelly wanted the club in his image, and there wasn't room for someone who towered over it. Dean was still fit, still scoring, but he was no longer controllable. And when a player gets too big for the suits, they don't retire him, they remove him, not with shouts, not with fights, with paperwork and silence. This wasn't a football decision, it was a political one. And the club never said a word. They said it was time to move forward, that Dean had given enough. But he wasn't finished. He was still scoring, still training, still ready, until they brought in Tommy Lawton, young, sharp, ambitious, the new centre forward, tall like Dean, danger is in the air. And most importantly, obedience to management. Lawton wasn't the villain, but he was the excuse. The moment he arrived, Dean's minutes vanished. He was pushed to the side without a fight, because the fight was already decided in the boardroom. They called it natural succession. But that's not how it looked inside Goodison. Dean saw what was happening. He was watching someone else wear his position, while he sat in the reserves. No official statement, no announcement, just gone. I could see it was over, he said. They'd made their choice. Lawton went on to be great, but he was handed a stage built by a man they didn't even let say goodbye. And for all the goals he scored, he never had to pay the price Dean did. Never got kicked like he did. Never got betrayed like he did. Dean wasn't replaced. He was removed to make room. That's not transition. That's elimination. They said Dixie Dean never lost his cool. But that's not the full truth. One day after a frustrating match at Goodison, a man in the crowd opened his mouth. Loud, cruel, repeating what others whispered behind Dean's back. About his age, about the club turning on him, about being finished. Dean walked past the tunnel, then stopped, turned around and knocked him cold with a single punch. No hesitation, no apology, because some words deserved silence and others deserved fists. The press ignored it. The board buried it, but the fans remembered. He wasn't just a legend on the pitch. He was a man who wouldn't let the crowd rewrite his name while he was still breathing. If I ever lost my dignity, Dean once hinted, it'd be because someone else tried to steal it first. It wasn't just a punch. It was a message to those in the crowd, to those in the boardroom, and to the new players trying to take his place. Dixie Dean had given everything, and he wasn't going to walk away quietly. They say legends don't fight fans, but sometimes legends have to. Just once, to remind them who they're shouting at. They loved his goals, but not his mind. Dixie Dean wore the England shirt 16 times. He scored 18 goals, and still he was left out, again and again. No injury, no scandal, just silence. Why? Because he didn't fit their image of an obedient soldier. He questioned, he clashed. He had his own way of doing things. He spoke out about unfair treatment, refused to flatter the FA's old guard, and never played the politics. He wasn't like the southern boys they liked to parade. He was northern, direct, blunt, and he didn't care for their fancy talk. They want quiet men who smile, someone once whispered near Dean. But Dixie, he wanted justice more than praise. Behind closed doors, it was said that some officials found him too outspoken, that he intimidated the selectors, that he wasn't a team man, just because he wouldn't kneel. Even when he was scoring for fun, they hesitated to call him up. And when they did, he was often played out of position, like a test, not a tribute. They couldn't control him, so they erased him from the plan, and in doing so, they robbed England of one of its deadliest weapons. But Dean never begged, he never pleaded, he just went back to Everton and kept scoring. Because he didn't need England to be a legend. England needed him, and they never had the courage to admit it. They try to compare, they bring charts, percentages, tactics, but they never bring fear. Because no striker today terrifies defenders like Dixie Dean did. In 1927-28, he scored 60 league goals in 39 matches. Not in some small league. In the first division. Against the best. No penalties, no padded stats. Just chaos. Headers. Scraps. Thunderbolts. He finished with 349 goals in 399 league games. Do the maths. Not one modern forward gets close. I used to head harder than they could kick, Dean once joked. But the defenders weren't laughing. They kicked him. Stamped him. Split his eyebrow open. He kept going. Today's stars complain about pitches, about pressure. Dean played with a steel plate in his head. From a motorbike accident that nearly killed him. And still he jumped higher than men with no excuses. He didn't need agents, didn't need social media. He needed a ball, a crowd and someone to shut up. He wasn't chasing records, he was chasing pride. And now, nearly 100 years later, his number still stands. They've spent a century trying to erase him, trying to rewrite greatness. But Dean's record remains, not just because of goals, but because of myth. Because men like him didn't just play football, they made it shiver. He died where he belonged, at Goodison Park, watching the club he bled for. 1st March 1980, heart attack in the stands, age 73. But the way they said goodbye was too small for what he gave. No national mourning, no long tribute. A few lines, a plaque, a polite silence. Yes, they gave him a statue, but they never gave him justice, because justice means truth. And the truth is, they erased him long before he died. Theo Kelly pushed him out. England overlooked him. Even Everton let him fade. He wasn't invited to speak, wasn't offered a platform. He didn't sell his name. He sold pride for goals. And when the goals stopped, so did their memory. He ended up living above a pub in Chester, still proud, still quiet, still loyal to a game that forgot him. But his family? They remembered. 3 children, a wife who saw it all, from broken jaw to broken heart. They watched him become a legend without a pension, a hero without honours. But the real fans never forgot. The old Evertonians, the ones who passed down stories in pubs, not papers. The ones who taught their grandkids what a real number 9 looked like. He didn't need to talk, one fan said. He just scored, and that was enough. He still holds the record, 60 league goals in a season. He still haunts defenders who never met him. No one ever played like Dixie Dean, and no one ever paid the price for treating him like they did. His statue stands now, cast in bronze, strong, silent, like the man. But justice, that's not metal, that's memory. And in the memory of the people, he's not a statue. He's still moving, still scoring, still fighting for a name they tried to forget. Subscribe for the players they erased, the strikers who punched back, the men who didn't ask to be remembered, but were anyway.